Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Part 3 of A Werewolf in Prison, or When the Police Captured Me, or something like that. This is Werewolf the Podcast, and this is your werewolf, Will, letting you know what a werewolf's life is all about. Please go back and listen to the other 2 episodes in this series. It will really help. If you'd like to support the show, which would be nice, there's a link in the description, which you can link to, and then link to buy me a coffee through a link. Thanks. Moving on, back to the story. Eventually they gave me my very own cell in Belmarsh Prison. It was one of the 2 famous security cells. Cell number 2. Goodness knows what cell number 1 is like. This cell had no mattress or furniture of any kind, nothing comfy on which to take my leisure. It had no window or even a proper shitter. They expected me to do it in a fucking bucket again. I mean, they'd not even supplied me with toilet paper. No toilet paper, no bidet. Proper disgusting. This was undoubtedly going to get them a stinging review on TripAdvisor. All in all, it was a pretty stark white square box. I was kept far, far away from the other prisoners. Apparently I was a high-risk case, which I just did not get. I was not a high-risk case. I was at least a super awesomely high-risk case. I was waiting for the dicks to come from the government to have a catch-up chat. I don't really know which one. The government was my last employee, you see, and I knew they would become involved at some point. At work, my handlers were always called dicks because they always looked the same, and I couldn't be bothered actually distinguishing them from one another. They were just dicks, and they all loved that sweet nickname. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please go back and listen to the Army episode starting at number 1. It would come out eventually who and where I was. That could be a very bad situation. I mean, I had retired on bad terms. I think I'd made my case for handing in my notice when I murdered my boss. Although, he never got the chance to give me any feedback, I suppose. If the government got involved, I might just be disappeared, or even worse. I may be made to work for them again. Shit. My only plan really was to be open to the media and the people in general. If I was visible to all, it would be challenging for them to make me disappear. Well, that's what I thought. Luckily, the dicks were not apparent at this moment, so it was somewhat relaxing in my little cell. Then the criminal justice system started their questioning and wanted to know the name of my solicitor or lawyer or whatever. They seemed shocked that I would be defending me. Not really a shock in my eyes. I am the most intelligent person I know, and knowing that would mean that relying on someone who was less bright than myself would be pretty stupid. I knew for a fact that I was going to bring into the court, a revolution. Whole sections of the law would have to be rewritten after this case, as if I needed someone to defend me. I laugh in the face of their silliness. These dumb simians would never have the fucking privilege. Who would defend me properly? You all have a prey species demeanour. No way that you would ever understand what I was actually all about. After 2 dead guards and several dead prisoners, it came as no shock that I could not get any bail. Bastards. It also meant that I was in solitary confinement permanently, which was both wonderful and dull at the same time. Cell 2 was a bit of a kick to the ego. What would I have to do to get to number 1? I was willing to find out and try. They also had to change the initial judge after he had strangely died in a chainsaw accident at his home. When questioned about my knowledge of the attack, I thought it would be amusing to pass the chainsaw blade over the table to the officers present. Apparently, it wasn't amusing and only added to a lot more security and questions on how the fuck I got out, or maybe got out. No sense of humour. You try and have a laugh with these people and they get all judgy and shit. They gave me access to all that law nonsense to build my case, but in reality my case was not based on any law that existed in human history. It had no need to have the backing of any cases in the past, because with a sensible jury and the ability to use a little common sense, they will see why they should let this predator go. I was just a predator taking its needed prey from nature. I mean, it was fucking evident in reality. Nature did not follow any moral or ethical laws. I was part of nature, and I was on the brink of extinction. I had watched a lot of David Attenborough programs to build my defense. From every program that we watched, we could see that people left the natural world to do their own thing. Otherwise, why did they never step in when the baby birds were having their eyes pecked out by magpies? Predators should be left alone to carry out their function. Well, the truth was, no one was going to get me off, were they? So I may as well just have some fun making up bollocks before I decided to leave. I must admit, most of my computer research time was spent working through my quality porn. After investigation, I admitted to a few murders here and there. The sense of enjoyment I gained from this was offset as I had to keep myself measured and calm when people did not understand the point of what I was trying to explain. I never went into the detail of my wolfy ways. I did not need them to question or rely on my insanity for the case. So I kept my story about human me. I mean, with my arguments, I could prove my case without the release of the beast inside. I could hold Fenn back for a last-ditch attempt at proving my point. The first few official court dates, I did not speak or offer any defence, as the crimes that they blamed me for continued to build in seriousness and number. I knew, though, that my one single argument would completely destroy all these accusations and make the murder and mayhem irrelevant or not. Well, probably not, but I didn't really give a shit. The media got behind the case, and every night I was in the news with new revelations and new stories of destruction. I mean, it was a bit annoying that the world had run away with this story, and to be honest, not all those things they accused me of were mine. After a lot had been said, I started making shit up to see if I could convince them of me doing even madder shit than I'd done. The case began to grow, and as of yet, I'd not really given any kind of defence. I now headed in to end all this stupid nonsense, confident that it was going to be okay. I was locked in a little cage in the courtroom for the final day. It was time to give my final speech for my defence, so I gently levered the locked door open of the cage and stepped towards the jury. Things went a little batshit crazy, but I told everyone to back off as I grabbed the judge by the scruff of his gown and smiled at the crowd. The judge was a brave man and waved everyone away, and I sat him next to me in his seat as I gave my final statement. It was actually a bit funny as we looked somewhat like a comedy ventriloquist act. Finally, I was held in a mental institute somewhere out in the country and kept well away from all others. I could still get out if I wanted, but I tried to resolve myself of all this nonsense that they accused me of. I wanted them to understand the reasons why I do what I do and how they were actually a positive thing for the human race. I wanted them to know that some of us are at a higher level in the food chain than others. That is my actions. I think the herd of those who are weak, and those weak hold you back, and I get rid of those that don't help your evolution to a better place. It just makes fucking sense. Well, it does to me. Well, in court, that didn't go down very well. I made my arguments and brought up no witnesses. My witness was nature, and she was the priority in this world. Fuck humans as this little plague that ruins the earth. Firstly, the less of you, the better. The less of you, the better the health of the planet. The people I kill tend to be those in the 1%, the users and abusers of wealth and resources. The fewer of them, the better for the world. It would just take the jury to realise that I am a healthy service to you humans. I am the control of the population, or a part of it. I am the lynx on the hare population, the wolf on the red deer, the peregrine on the pigeon. We need these top-of-the-food chain predators, otherwise the population of vermin would overrun. They should keep me out there for their own sake. At the end of my final piece, I wandered back to the cage and sat myself down in it and locked the door again. I laid back in my seat, and I knew I had kicked ass as I saw the effect I'd caused on the jury. They had never heard such an eloquent conclusion, and they were having to really consider their next steps. I mean, this was history in the making. These people would be famous for this outcome, the first to show an understanding of actual reality. It was going to be a beautiful thing. The jury was led away for deliberance over the outcome. I knew this would only take a few minutes, so I stayed even though I was invited to leave the little cage. I told them to gently fuck off. I sat there for 20 minutes, then an iPad was passed to me. As the court remained empty, weird. The judge, though, bravely came back through to the bench and sat down in the silence of the empty court. The judge then asked the jury for their outcome. He did this over the iPad and from the safety of another room. Do you know what? You're not going to believe this. No, really. No, seriously. They found me guilty. Did you hear that? They're so stupid and lack such an understanding that they actually found me guilty. Hadn't they listened to me? Were they so fucking dumb? Could they not understand the simple terms that I used? I sat there dumbstruck, absolutely bemused by the outcome. Initially, I was so angry with this fallacy in law that I was ready to wolf out and take everything apart. Then I heard Fenn laughing his socks off, even though he didn't wear them, and realised that these people were too fucking stupid to understand me. I had wasted my time, and it was on me that they did not get it. After a few life sentences were given, I just broke into laughter. I think it reassured the judge that I found this whole thing pretty amusing. I mean, it was ridiculous. I also think that he was relieved that I didn't want to kill him. I didn't. He was being very brave after I'd walked out the cage before. So now more judges had to deliberate my placement in my sentence. I was led with my posit to a secure room where I met the two men who would decide on my fate. They had the choice of Broadmoor or Belmarsh. Where was it that I would be going for the rest of my life, or until I didn't want to be there anymore? They sat and considered for some time. Belmarsh is the high security prison where Britain sends its worst and those with no idea what they should do with. It has terrorists and murderers, multi-millionaire, maybe billionaire drug lords who can pay for prison escape fast and furious 15 style. Broadmoor is a, sorry about this, it's probably not PC, loony bin where they send those that have mental problems. Not a prison, but by no means a hospital. It is officially an NHS facility where they fix killer fruitcakes, mainly by over-medicating them. The decision was first to send me to Belmarsh to assess my mental state. I came across as quite sane, but most psychotics do apparently. I would be taken to the medical section of the prison where their doctors would assess me to see if my brain was the issue. Then maybe Broadmoor, maybe not. Either would be fun, I guess. I was a bit giggly, I must admit, as Fenn was taking the piss out of these very serious men with their very serious ways. They seemed seriously silly as they seriously spoke, and I put my hand up to try and get the judge's attention. I tried to interject. I repeated. The two men in deep discussion looked upon me with a little disgust. They looked at me with the hope that I would, quieten down like a naughty child. I raised my hand in the way of apologising for my disruption, and then they continued to talk. Fenn was busy sniffing the judge and looked at me with a little mischievous smile. Well, this one has been fucking this morning, Will. He sniffed him again as he moved his way around the man in deep conversation. Judging, getting it? Judging by the smell of the residue, the fuckee was about 14-year-old and a boy. He kept his circling. Fen took another great sniff right in the face of the lordly man. The man went quiet at that moment, as though my invisible friend had actually bothered him. It was an Asian boy. I mean, I can probably break it down further. I would say maybe Southern Korean from a family of maybe 6, Fen told me. I think this man believes it is consensual, he laughed. Although I do not think that he would give a fuck if the child, said no. Fen then turned to the other guy and took a deep breath. He laughed out loud, literally. This guy is a cokehead of the highest order, he told me. I mean, this one has lines with his breakfast. The left pocket contains a little vial, maybe about 3 grams of Peruvian flake. 98% pure. This guy has expensive tastes. 4 or 5 grams a day, I reckon. I smiled. This was great. Ahem, I repeated to try and get some attention from the two men deep in discussion. My constant interference was obviously annoying them, and I smiled as the irritation became palpable. Guys, can I just say something? The men stopped talking and turned to me. Yes, Mr. Beast, how can we help you? Well, I just wondered if I may have some input into the outcome that you are forcing me into. Mr. Beast, the control of the situation has gone far beyond your hands, he told me in condescending tones as they went back to their conversation. Judge Delaney, how's your popularity in the Korean community? I mean, you've been spending a lot of time immersed in their culture, have you not? I mean, I notice you have a part to play in supporting those countries' young people. I mean, only this morning you were working very hard to help one young man. I can't believe that a man of your importance would work at such an individual level. And you, whatever you're called, because you're such a rude cunt that you didn't even introduce yourself to me. How is that? Oh, fuck it. I'm not going to be too clever here. How is that cocaine in your pocket and in your nose? The faces were a picture. One of the 4 guards around me gave an uncomfortable laugh, stroke, cough, and broke the silence. It's in your left pocket. I would guess about 3 or 4 grams of pure. I turned to one of the guards. I bet he has. I bet he hasn't got the guts to turn out that pocket. I bet if you asked him to turn out that pocket, I bet he doesn't have the bollocks to turn out that pocket because it's got coke in it. Loads of coke. Loads and loads and loads and loads of coke. The next moment I was stood next to the honourable cokehead with my hands around the cokehead's throat. I smiled and looked deep into his eyes. I could crush your throat right here. It would be simple and easy to do. I applied a little bit of pressure to the skinny, balding man. The guards moved towards me. I squeezed a little harder and told them to step back. The other judge tried to move away from us, but just with eye contact alone, I managed to return him to his seat. What right have you to judge me? You commit atrocities every day in your own ways. You do your little horrors behind the backs of others, yet get the right to judge me? The fear was palpable. I rammed my hand into his pocket, removed the wee bottle, opening the lid, and then threw the contents of it into the air and took a deep and hearty sniff. The look of horror in his eyes as he saw it scatter was beautiful to behold. His first micro-expression was over the loss of the drug that he loved. That was his first thought, about the waste of his favourite stuff. Then his next expression was about the fact that I had outed him in front of these really, really important people. Before it hit the table, and before the guards had time to react, I was sat back in my original seat laughing. You might be able to guess, I'm pretty fucking fast. Fuck, man. "This is great shit," I said, licking my fingers and smiling. "Hey guys, you should try that. It's not council dust shite. I know that you guys will not do anything, but I would test that powder if I were you. You know, I didn't have it on me before I entered. Have you got the guts, Guardios, to do the right thing and give this information that I just gave you to the oodles of policemen out there about this naughty judge?" No, of course not. Also, this one sat so smugly is a fucking paedophile with a passion for young Korean boys, it seems. "You, officer," I looked at him, "you have 2 boys. One is, I would say 10, and the other," I sniffed, "is about 6, yeah? Well, this man would love to make their acquaintance in a very sexual manner, although they're not Asian. So maybe he would close his eyes as he was having his cock sucked and imagining a wee Korean boy. Oh, and Officer Smith," I actually laughed at the guy having the most common name in England, "judging by your tattoos, it is just another example of those filthy foreigners coming over here and taking the jobs that proper British people should have. These foreign children coming over here and sucking our judges' cocks. What's wrong with the fucking good British children who could be sucking cocks?" This world is a crazy thing about what it accepts. Let's look at those that run our lives. We put people in positions of power without any thought that they may actually use that power for themselves in any way. How fucking stupid are we? Someone says, "I promise that I will use this position of power and use the ability to make decisions for others purely for the good of the population. I am so good that I will put you people before myself and my family or little tribe that all went to the same school and university. I will not be corrupted by the easy opportunity to make shitloads of money and manipulate you poor fools with the power that you've given me." I mean, look at these 2 losers appointed by the fucking Queen of all people. Okay, she's told who to appoint by someone else, but who are they, for fuck's sake? These 2 are both establishment boys. I bet you 10 pence that they went to Eton or Westminster, then they went to Oxbridge, or if they were a bit thick, then bought a place at somewhere like St Andrews. They got their jobs by who they know, not what they know or how good they are at being kind and understanding. Old boys are getting their jobs by protecting each other in the old boy network. They are a fucking team. These rich aristocrat types keep the likes of you and me down, yet for some reason, this society lets them. It's fucking ridiculous. My beefy friends, I was actually talking to the guards at this point, but I could be talking to you as well. The fact that this guy has had a shower in coke is never going to come up because you haven't got the guts to grasp on these 2 hardened criminals that pretend to be about justice when in reality they are just rich enough with enough rich friends to protect themselves. In fact, they probably learnt their protected vices and propensities from their friends. If I had been holding a mic at this point, I would have dropped it and the judges would have been arrested and judged themselves. They would have asked me to take over this country and then make the rules and shit, knowing that I was a complete self-centered cunt. But at least I would know I was out just for myself and not pretending that I was anything else. I looked at the guards again. Are you going to do anything about it, or are you going to just ignore it? I mean, there is actual cocaine there on the fucking desk, which you know for a fact that I did not have on me because you searched me to the very core. I mean, to the very core. Officer Smith had his hands so far up my arse that it would be the equivalent to a marriage proposal in some countries. I do have to thank you for that, though. It was a much needed release. I'm sorry about the orgasm. I know it nearly broke your homophobic wrist. I then whispered to him, "But we both know you've done that before, my closeted friend. You're too good." I waited for a moment for the guards to do their respective jobs. They did nothing. They stood there pretending that they had not heard or seen anything.
"Who in God's name do you think you are, sir? You question my authority to cast judgment on plebs like yourself. You think you can worry me with your tricks? You a murderer and a maniac, a killer for no other reason than you draw pleasure from doing so. I wish the laws on capital punishment had not been revised. I would love to see you swing on a rope of hemp. I promise you this, though, you will rot in the smallest hole in the ground that I can find for what you have done. This man is a common murderer, and in such should be treated like one," said the fucking cokehead. He was quite out of breath by the time that he'd finished his piece. I sat and smiled. Fen was bursting to get into me and rip his world apart, but no, I wanted to store up all this hatred. I felt I could, and that I would really enjoy the time I met this man again on my own terms. It would be quite a long time. "I won't be in prison for very long, your worship. When I get out, which I will find you and your family, and I will cause you so much pain that your death will be the reward for which you wish. I will hurt you and yours in ways that you cannot even imagine. I give you one opportunity to stop this from happening now. You can resign, you can own up publicly to your habit, and you can apologize to me. If you don't, then I am going to fucking kill you." I smiled. "I would do another line while you consider it, mate. You seem to be running low on energy right now." "You, on the other hand," I said as I threw my handcuffs at the other judge, "I'm just going to kill. Not because you're a paedophile. That's your own business, and I hope that the guilt you feel from that and the lives that you ruined sends you loopy. Probably not, though, because you're a cold-blooded fish, as they say." So I ended up in Belmarsh Medical Wing to be assessed for my mental health problems. It would take a while for me to explain that my mental health issues are not a problem. My mental health issues are what makes me strong. I may have made some important enemies at that point, but I don't give a shit, really. At least when you have enemies, you know exactly where you stand. Friends, I believe, never having had any, can hurt you if they become disloyal. I don't really do the friends thing. I don't understand the need to like anyone. Well, anyone but Fen. And me. That's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.